They say a father is a daughter's first love, her protector against the world's sharp edges. But what happens when the person holding the knife is the man she married? I stood there, rain soaking through my coat, staring at a scene that would haunt me until my dying breath. My little girl, humbled and broken on the wet pavement. Before I tell you exactly what I did to the people who hurt her, I need you to understand something. This isn't just a story about anger. It is a story about justice. If you are watching this from the comfort of your home or listening on your way to work, I want you to take a moment. Hit that like button if you believe family is sacred. Share this with someone who needs to know that evil does not win in the end. And please tell me in the comments where you are joining us from today. I read every single one. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. We are building a community here that stands for truth, and I want you to be part of it. My name is Clint. For 30 years, I worked in logistics in Bristol. I kept my head down, saved my money, and poured every ounce of love I had into my only child, Daisy. She was the light of my life, especially after her mother passed. Daisy was kind, perhaps too kind for a world that eats soft hearts for breakfast. When she met Grayson, I thought she had found her fairy tale. He was charming, wealthy, and came from the prominent Sterling family. But fairy tales are just warnings disguised as dreams. The beginning was perfect, orchestrated to be flawless. Grayson was a solicitor, sharp-suited and silver-tongued. He brought Daisy flowers every Friday. He opened doors. He spoke to me with a respectful nod, calling me sir with just the right amount of deference. I wanted to believe it. I wanted to believe that my Daisy, with her wild curls and paint-stained fingers, she was an artist, had found someone who would cherish her. Looking back, the signs were there, small and insidious, like cracks in a dam. It was the way he would gently correct her pronunciation in public. The way he would suggest she change her dress because the one she wore was a bit too loud for his family's taste. Daisy would just smile, that accommodating, sweet smile, and go change. She loved him. She was blinded by the brilliance of the life he promised her. The first time I felt a true coldness in my gut was at the engagement dinner. Grayson's mother, Beatrice, a woman who wore pearls like armor, looked at my rough, working man hands and offered me a fork with a pitying smile, explaining which one was for the salad. It wasn't the fork that bothered me. It was the way Grayson didn't look at me. He looked at Daisy, and for a split second, I saw not love, but possession. The wedding was a grand affair in a countryside manor in the Cotswolds. It cost more than my house, paid for entirely by the Sterlings. They insisted. They said they wanted everything just so. I offered to pay for the flowers, a contribution to my daughter's day. But Beatrice waved her hand dismissively, saying they had a specific florist who only worked with high budgets. I walked Daisy down the aisle. She looked like an angel, but her hand was trembling on my arm. "Are you happy, darling?" I whispered. She looked at Grayson waiting at the altar, and the tremble stopped. "I am, Dad. He's going to take care of me." That phrase stuck in my throat. Take care of her. It implies she couldn't take care of herself. I handed her over, and as Grayson took her hand, he didn't nod at me. He just turned his back, effectively blocking me from her view. It was symbolic, though I didn't realize how literal it would become. The reception was a blur of champagne and speeches where Grayson talked about how he had refined Daisy. The first year of marriage is supposed to be the honeymoon phase. For Daisy, it was the beginning of an erasure. Slowly, she stopped painting. She told me Grayson didn't like the smell of turpentine in their pristine townhouse. Then, she stopped visiting me as often. She said Grayson liked her to be home when he returned from the firm. I tried to call, but often Grayson would answer, saying she was in the bath, or napping, or out shopping. When I did speak to her, her voice sounded thin, stretched tight. She spoke about dinner parties and galas, things that never used to interest her. She was reciting a script written by someone else. One afternoon, I drove over to surprise her. I found her in the garden, staring at a rose bush. She looked pale. When she saw me, she flinched. "Dad, you shouldn't be here," she whispered, looking toward the house. "Grayson doesn't like unannounced guests. It disrupts the schedule." Schedule? My daughter was living by a timetable in her own home. Then came the news. Daisy was pregnant. I was overjoyed. A grandchild. I thought this would change things, soften Grayson, make the house a home. I was wrong. The pregnancy became another method of control. Grayson decided what she ate, when she slept, and who she saw, all under the guise of protecting the heir. He cut off her access to their joint accounts. He gave her a literal allowance, like a child. I found this out when we went for coffee, and her card was declined for a 3-pound latte. She turned crimson, tears welling in her eyes. "He must have forgotten to transfer the funds," she stammered. It breaks a father's heart to see his child stripped of dignity. If you are listening to this, and you feel that heavy ache in your chest knowing that someone is being controlled, that their voice is being silenced, I ask you to join us. Subscribe to this channel, not for me, but as a pledge. A pledge that we will not look away when we see injustice. By subscribing, you are saying that you stand with the Daisies of the world, and you stand against the Graysons. It is a small click for you, but it means the world to our message. The abuse wasn't physical, not at first. It was financial and emotional strangulation. Grayson and his mother, Beatrice, treated Daisy like a surrogate, a vessel for their legacy rather than a human being. Beatrice would come over daily, criticizing the cleanliness of the house, the way Daisy sat, the way she breathed. "You're gaining too much weight," Beatrice would say, sipping tea. "Grayson hates sloppy women." Daisy was 6 months pregnant. She was supposed to gain weight, but she would just nod and push away her plate. I started digging. I couldn't sit by. I had retired by then, but I still had contacts. I wanted to know who these people really were. Grayson Sterling. The name carried weight in the city, but rumors are like smoke. They always lead to a fire. I spent my days in the public records office, looking at land deeds, business filings, anything. What I found was interesting. The Sterling wealth was vast, yes, but it was leveraged, heavily. They lived on credit and reputation. Grayson's firm was facing 2 quiet lawsuits for malpractice. They were bleeding money, yet they spent it like water to maintain the illusion of power. Daisy knew none of this. She thought they were untouchable gods. One evening, Daisy called me, crying. "He threw away my paints, Dad. All of them. He said the nursery needed the space, and he didn't want the baby exposed to low-class hobbies." My blood boiled. "Come home, Daisy. I have the room. Come back to Bristol." There was a long silence. "I can't," she whispered. "He says if I leave, his lawyers will make sure I never see the baby. He says I'm mentally unstable. Dad, he has files on me. Diaries I wrote when I was a teenager. He's twisting everything." The trap was shut. They had isolated her, made her dependent, and now were threatening her with the one thing she loved more than herself, her unborn child. I had to be smart. If I stormed in there, they would call the police, paint me as the aggressive, working-class father-in-law, and use it against Daisy in court. I had to play the long game. I stopped challenging Grayson. I played the submissive old man. I apologized for overstepping. I sent gifts to Beatrice. It tasted like ash in my mouth, but I needed them to lower their guard. I needed access. Meanwhile, I quietly sold my house in Bristol. I liquidated my retirement funds. I had a substantial amount saved. I had invested in logistics tech in the early 2000s, something nobody knew about. I had money, real money, not debt money like the Sterlings. But I kept wearing my old corduroy jacket and driving my 10-year-old sedan. The incident happened in November. It was freezing, a bitter winter that seeped into your bones. Daisy was 8 months along. Her belly was large and her ankles were swollen. She was exhausted. Grayson was hosting a dinner for his partners. He demanded Daisy look presentable. He gave her a specific budget to buy a dress, a budget that was ridiculously low for the boutiques he insisted she shop at. It was a test, a setup. He wanted her to fail. Daisy found a dress. It was beautiful, a deep navy silk that accommodated her bump. But it was 50 pounds over the budget he gave her. She used the emergency cash I had slipped into her coat pocket months ago to cover the difference. She thought she had solved the problem. She thought she had done good. The dinner began well enough. I wasn't invited, of course. I was parked down the street watching the house. I had a bad feeling. I had been doing that a lot lately. Just watching, waiting. According to what Daisy told me later, Grayson complimented her appearance in front of the guests. He played the doting husband. But the moment the last guest left, the mask fell. He asked for the receipt. When he saw the price, he didn't yell. That was the terrifying part about Grayson. He rarely raised his voice. He just went cold. "You stole from me," he said. Daisy tried to explain she used her own money, my money, for the difference. "So you're taking handouts from your father now? You're making me look like I can't provide?" His ego was a fragile, dangerous thing. He threw the receipt into the fire. Beatrice was there, staying in the guest suite. She didn't defend Daisy. She laughed. A dry, cruel sound. "She needs to learn the value of a pound, Grayson. She's been spoiled." Spoiled? My daughter who worked 2 jobs through university? My daughter who was carrying their lineage? Grayson looked at Daisy with disgust. "The dress goes. And since you can't follow simple instructions, you need a reminder of your place." He demanded she take the dress off, right there in the living room. Humiliation was his favorite weapon. Daisy refused. She tried to walk away, to go upstairs. Grayson grabbed her arm, not hard enough to leave a bruise, but hard enough to stop her. "You will learn respect," he hissed. I was sitting in my car, sipping cold coffee, when I saw the front door open. I expected Grayson to be letting a guest out. Instead, I saw a figure stumble onto the porch. It was Daisy. She was wearing the dress. But then, to my horror, Grayson pushed her. "You want to wear that expensive dress? Fine, wear it outside, cool off. Maybe the cold will clear your head." He locked the door. It started to rain. A freezing, sleeting rain. Daisy banged on the door. "Grayson, please, it's freezing, the baby." Inside, the lights were warm. I could see shadows moving past the window. Beatrice and Grayson, pouring brandy, ignoring the pregnant woman shivering on their doorstep. Daisy walked down the steps, her legs shaking. She didn't have a coat. She didn't have shoes on, just stockings. She collapsed onto the wet cobblestones of the driveway. She curled into a ball, trying to protect her stomach. My son-in-law, Made my pregnant daughter kneel down in the rain for buying a dress. I just said, well, I didn't say anything yet. I just moved. I threw my car door open. The rage I felt wasn't red. It was white. It was absolute. I sprinted across the street, my boots splashing in the puddles. I reached her in seconds. She was blue, her teeth chattering so hard she couldn't speak. She looked up at me, her eyes unfocused. Dad? She stuttered. I'm sorry. She was apologizing. She was freezing to death on her own driveway, and she was apologizing. That broke me. And it built me back up into something dangerous. I took off my heavy coat and wrapped it around her. I helped her stand, though she was dead weight. Get in the car, Daisy. Turn the heater on. He has my keys. My phone, she wept. You won't need them, I said. I walked her to my car, settled her in, and cranked the heat. Then I turned back to the house. I walked up the steps. I didn't knock. I didn't ring the bell. I lifted my leg and kicked the door right at the lock. It was a solid oak door, but adrenaline is a powerful thing. It took 2 kicks, and the frame splintered. The door swung open with a crash. At 9 that night, I saw my daughter kneeling down in the rain, barely breathing. Inside, I heard her husband and his family laughing. I lifted her up, kicked the door open, and said 5 words they would never forget. Grayson dropped his glass. Beatrice screamed, clutching her pearls. They stared at me, soaked, muddy, and looking like a demon from the old world. What do you think you're doing? Grayson shouted, trying to regain his composure. I'll have you arrested for breaking and entering. I walked right up to him. I was inches from his face. I saw the fear flicker in his eyes. You have lost everything today, I said. Those were the words. Get out, Grayson sneered, though his voice wavered. Take your trash daughter and get out. Oh, I'm taking her, I said calmly. And I'm taking this too. I grabbed the expensive vase from the hallway table, a Ming Dynasty replica Beatrice loved, and smashed it on the floor. You're insane, Beatrice shrieked. I'm a father, I corrected, and you have made a grave miscalculation. I turned and walked out. I got in the car with Daisy. We drove away. I took her to a private clinic, not the hospital where Grayson had contacts. We made sure the baby was okay. He was fine. A fighter. The next morning, the war began. Grayson filed a police report for the door. He tried to file for emergency custody of the unborn child, citing Daisy's instability. He thought he was winning. But remember those weeks I spent digging? Remember the liquidity I raised? I didn't just find out Grayson was in debt. I found out who held his debt. His mortgage wasn't with a bank anymore. It had been sold to a private equity firm for distressed assets. A firm called Archon Holdings. 2 weeks ago, Archon Holdings had been acquired by a silent investor. Me. 3 days after the rain incident, Grayson walked into his office to find his partners waiting for him. They had received a dossier, evidence of the embezzlement Grayson had been using to cover his personal debts. The evidence I had gathered. He was fired on the spot. But the real blow came at noon. He went home to the townhouse, the symbol of his status. He found the locks changed. A bailiff was standing outside. "What is this?" Grayson demanded. "This is my house." "Actually," the bailiff said, checking his clipboard, "the property has been foreclosed by the lien holder due to breach of contract and failure to maintain insurance." "I have insurance," Grayson yelled. He didn't. I knew he had let the policy lapse to pay for the wedding. It was a clause in the mortgage contract. Immediate foreclosure upon lapse. Grayson called the holding company. He demanded to speak to the owner. He was put through. "Mr. Sterling," I said, putting the phone on speaker so Daisy could hear. We were sitting in my new rental, a warm, safe cottage in the countryside. "Who is this?" Grayson asked. "It's Clint," I said. Silence. Absolute terrified silence. You own the note?" "I own the note. I own the debt. And I own the evidence of your fraud," I said. "And because I am a generous man, I am giving you a choice. Sign full custody over to Daisy, renounce your parental rights, and leave the country. Or I give the file to the Crown Prosecution Service." Grayson signed. He had no choice. He was a bully, and bullies are cowards when the power dynamic shifts. He fled to Spain to avoid prosecution for the embezzlement, leaving Beatrice destitute. She had to move into a council flat in Luton. Daisy gave birth to a healthy baby boy, Leo. He has my eyes and her gentle spirit. We live quietly now. Daisy has started painting again. Her art is different. Darker, perhaps, but stronger. She is healing. We never heard from Grayson again. He is a ghost, a bad memory washed away by the rain. As I hold my grandson, I think about that night. I think about the choice between silence and action. It's easy to look away. It's easy to say, "It's not my business." But family is business. Love is a verb. It requires action. If this story moved you, if you felt the cold rain and the warmth of justice, please, I ask you one last time, subscribe. Share this story, not for the algorithm, but because somewhere out there, another Daisy is waiting for someone to kick down the door. Be that person. Be the one who acts. Thank you for listening.